Hey y'all, Melissa here with you today, and today I'm going to show you how to make these contrast trim shorts, and they have pockets. I have a free pattern on my site, and that is linked below. There's also a paid version for some different sizes and options, and both of those are in the link below. Whichever one you get, meet me back at the camera and I'll show you how to sew this option up. Let's take a look at the supplies. So you should have a waistband, the waist cut out of elastic, and this should equal your measurement where you want the band to sit. And then you want 2 back pieces, 2 front pieces, 4 pocket pieces, and you need either bias tape or knit binding to go around the edges. So the first step here is going to be to take one back and the corresponding front piece, place them right sides together and stitch right down this center inseam. You want to repeat that on the other front and back, and these should be mirror images of each other. If you are sewing with stretch knit fabric, make sure to do a stretch stitch here. If you're sewing with woven fabric, you can do a straight stitch. Here's what this looks like once it's laid out and that seam is sewn. And the next step is going to be to take pocket pieces, and you want to line them up right sides together, lining them up at the top and the side seam for this little jog part that comes out here. And you're going to stitch these in place using your 1/2 inch seam allowance. And you're going to do the same with the other 2 pocket pieces and the other shorts piece. Here's what that looks like once these pockets are sewn on. And then what we need to do next is we need to flip the pockets to the wrong side. And you might want to use an iron, but you need to press the pocket on that seam that you sewed. And what you'll notice is there's this seam allowance here that's going to be getting folded back. So what we actually want to do is I like to snip the pocket seam allowance. I like to snip the seam allowance on the shorts as well, so that then when I fold the pocket back, then this seam allowance on the shorts can come out to the side. And then next what I'm going to do, since I'm going to use bias tape on this edge, is I'm just going to trim that off, like moving out towards the edge there, even with the pocket. Okay, so now we've still got the curve down here, but the pocket edge is even. I'll repeat that on the other side. Once that is done, it's going to be time to sew the bias tape on. So you may want to just kind of like pin the pockets in a few places flat in the middle, just to kind of hold them in place, because we're going to be stitching the outer edges. So from the right side, this is going to look like this, and we need to differentiate between the front and the back of the shorts. So you'll notice that the distance to that crotch inseam there is shorter on the front than it is on the back. So this is the back, this is the front, and we want to stitch bias tape from just above where the pocket stitching ended all the way around this bottom edge and all the way up the side seam of the front. Now, I'm not going to show you exactly how to stitch that on because I have 2 different videos here. One shows you how to do bias tape around curves, double fold bias tape, and that is linked below. And then I also have one that shows you how to do what I did, which is use a double fold binder attachment if you have a cover stitch machine. So this is what that looks like here. And because these are mirror images, this side is the front of my shorts here, this side is the back, and you can see my knit binding went from just above that stitching on the pocket and all the way around and all the way up the side of the front. The pockets themselves get caught So see how the edge of the pocket gets caught all the way in there, all the way. And over here, same thing's happening, that the pocket got caught in the stitching all the way down the side seam here. The next step is going to be to fold this right sides together, and we want to match those pocket edges that are not sewn yet. We want to match those to each other. So the bias tape, you actually want to fold it in for this step, and we're going to stop stitching when we get to that bias tape edge. But we're going to stitch around this curve of the pocket. Once you've stitched around the pocket, then what we are going to do is turn this right side out, and this is the front side here. We're going to push the pocket towards the front side. So I'm lining up all of those edges there. And then I'm gonna fold my shorts so that I can look at this side seam. So what I wanna do is I want to push the back seam, bound seam down, and I want to overlap the front seam. And I'm going to pin it right at the top of where that binding ends on the back edge. And then I'm going to pin it down at the bottom where I want the overlap to stop. And making sure all my pocket is pushed this way, I'm going to overlap that binding. Next, I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and I want to sew right from that top of the pocket area there, and make sure it's laying flat, down to where I want the overlap to stop, which is basically at the bottom of the pocket. And because this is going to be showing, I've switched my thread color to pink so that I can stitch right on that line of top stitching and secure this in place. Here's what that looks like stitched into place, and you need to repeat it on the other leg. Then we are going to turn one leg wrong side out, and inside of that leg we will place the right side out leg. So here's the right side out one. And I want to match that inseam, the very first seam we sewed. So I'm opening this out. If you used a serger for that seam, you can press one to one side and one to the other side. Okay, so you can see here's the center front crotch, here's the center back crotch, and I am going to stitch all along that U-shaped curve in one seam. Here is what that looks like once it is stitched in place. And now we can turn these right side out. And you'll notice I added pins on top here to pin the front to the back at the pockets. But the last thing we need to do is add the waistband. So there are a couple ways to do this, and I'm actually not going to show either of them on this video. If you would like to just do the normal elastic waistband, then watch the video that I've linked below for the pajama pants, and it will show you how to do that type of waistband, the separate waistband, and insert elastic. If you would like to do the drawstring waist elastic like these end up, then you're going to want to watch the jogger video below, because that one shows step by step how to do the elastic and add a drawstring.